Good morning and welcome. Nice
Good
to have you here
morning.
today.
Good morning. Yes, this is March 9th, 2025, and it's the first day that clocks changed. So we hope you remember to do
Today,
that.
we're going to be talking about losses because you lost an entire hour. And in the fall, we'll be talking about games. Yeah.
Our conversation this morning is about the still small voice. And I have so many wonderful quotes about this because every spiritual person you admire talks about it. And I know many of you experience this all the time. But we need to remind ourselves what a treasure it
You
is.
know, for most of us we're at an age where most everything that we've heard, we've already heard. And if you're also the same age, a lot of it you've forgotten. So, so it's really helpful to be reminded. And sometimes I think we try things out. They work for a while. They work so well, we forget to continue to do them.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's really important because as we forget to do them, we forget that that was actually helping us. And so some of the things that help us the most, Judith comes up with the most amazing quotes. And what impresses me is that I don't think that they're that important until I hear one and I go, oh, wow, that's really good. But I think it's that way in life. We tend to be so efficient with our lives that we cut out a lot of the things that are good for us as well as the things that aren't.
Well, one of the reasons is the most important thing that you need to do to hear
The
that
shower.
still
Oh, I'm
small
sorry.
voice is is to not be so busy. You
Yeah,
have to have
yeah,
some quiet, still time. So that's why so many people hear this voice in meditation
that's right.
or in quiet hours. But I want to start with a quote from our founder, Ernest Holmes. It's a beautiful quote from The Science of Mind that we call the textbook. He says, no matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be, there's always something hidden in the inner being that has never been violated.
Hmm.
We may stumble, but always there is that eternal voice forever whispering within our ear, that thing that causes the eternal quest, that thing which forever sings and sings.
I love it.
Yes, it's really beautiful. And then I'm just going to continue with a quote from Rick Field. I don't know him, but he's professor of physics from the University of Florida, of all things. But he's giving us the source of this. Um, I'm trying to turn this light on. He's giving us the source of of this, the words, the still small voice within. And the Quakers apparently came up with it. And this is what um, his Rick Field's quote is: "Only when we are silent can we begin to hear the voice that is truly our own, what the Quakers call the still small voice within. The source of this voice, which may be without sound and yet is heard, is called by many different names: the inner guide, guardian angel, spirit guide, the collective unconscious, or just plain intuition. Actually, all of us hear the whisperings of this voice every single day of our lives, but many ignore it."
It reminds me of the quote in the Seth materials. For those of you that don't know this, Seth books are, for me, they were life-changing when I read them. But in the Nature Personal Reality, Seth talks about what he calls the source self. That's a very interesting concept, and that is that there is an inner us, if you will, at the core of our being that has all of our history, that knows all of who we are and have always been. And it's that source self that also we connect to, that connects to uh, the other dimensions that we're available to see. So a really important part of it is knowing that we are connected by something deep within ourselves before we connect with anything else anywhere else. And so when we call to that quiet voice, call it intuition, call it whatever you want to call it, it's coming from a place that has a history. It's coming from a place that is interconnected to everything that is. And so when we say God in you, we actually are we're talking about that small part of you that is enormous is everywhere present all the time and is connected. And that's really, really important, especially when if you go through a tough time where you're feeling alone and isolated, to know there's a part of you, there's a dimension of you that is awake and alive and invested in you.
And
So if somebody just came on, just not muted, so if you could mute yourself, that'd be
no,
great.
they will be automatically muted. So I want to go back to, I think, I know it was 1980. That's the first time I really experienced hearing this inner voice. And I went to a conference it was conducted by Dr. Joy, and David Spangler,
Hmm.
both of them spiritual masters. And Joy said one day, um, today we're going to all be in silence and for 12 hours. And we'll come back together after 12 hours. It probably was from 9 to 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And he said, during this time, you will hear from your inner teacher. And I thought, oh, this is so exciting. I've never heard that I know a voice. And so I kept waiting for it to happen, and it seemed like it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and the long day was pretty boring. Couldn't talk to anybody. But finally, I went down and sat on the beach. This was at Asilomar on the west coast of California. And I just sat down on the beach to meditate. And lo and behold, I heard bells ringing and a sing-songy voice that talked to me and said, all is well, all is well. Um, and I was delighted to hear a voice, but I thought, if you think all is well, you come down here and do this for me. I was having marital problems, all kinds of problems, but it was so nice. It was so exciting to actually hear a voice. And so that inner teacher, I think he called it your inner teacher, whatever I called it before, I call it your inner teacher. So I got very interested in this word intuition. And so I looked up the word tuition because I'm always trying to make sense of words and where their origins come from. And this tuition, that's what we pay to go to school. So I didn't understand it. And when I looked it up, tuition means teaching. Tuition means teaching, a teach. And so
Intuition.
intuition is your inner teacher.
I love it.
And I go, oh, oh, this makes sense. And it is something we all have, as I think you said earlier, Bob.
I want to pay attention to some steps that were actually activated in you that are important for all of us. Brew Joy, or was it David Spangler?
Both of them.
Well, both of them said to you, we're going to have a day of silence, and your inner voice is going to speak to you. Now, what's really powerful in that is that you believed it. And you
Well,
walked,
but also what's required is silence,
well, no,
quietness.
I understand that, but you believed that something was going to happen.
I did,
And you
and I waited
participated
for
and you
it.
participated in the agreement to allow it to happen. You see, what I think for some people is I'm going to listen to my inner voice, and I wish I believed that there was one. And so if you're thinking to yourself, I don't really believe it, but I'm going to listen for it, that noise can very much impair the ability to hear it. You could say that in that moment, Judith, you were relatively gullible. And your gullible or your innocence allowed you to participate in saying yes to that occasion. So the first thing I'd like to invite everybody to do that hasn't done this in a while is invite yourself to say yes, that it's real, and then say yes to the process of listening and being patient that the listening is the space that needs to be open for it to happen rather than, well, it's been 5 minutes, I got things to do. And I know how we are in this world today. The cell phone rings or we're waiting for something to happen. And when we're going to go on a flight, we look at our watch about every 10 minutes to see if it's time for the flight yet. It's almost as if we don't believe it's going to land until it lands. We don't even believe in things that are tangible and real that are going to happen, much less something that's in ourself. So I want to invite you to really pay attention to, am I saying yes to this inner voice? Am I allowing it? And I'm going to ask you to do one other thing that maybe sounds crazy. When you ask for it and say yes, close your eyes and ask yourself to say yes and then smile. Give yourself a big smile and just feel how it feels to have a positive anticipation. If you're frowning while you're asking, you're already saying it probably can't happen.
Yeah, and I'm going to share another habit I'm trying to break. I think ever since high school, I've started my day with a to-do list.
Ah,
And I go from one thing, and when I get that done, I go to the next, the next, the next, the next, with no spaces in between. And what I'm wanting and choosing to do now is to allow spaces between my activities so that I have time to hear this inner guidance, this inner teaching. And because quiet time and silence, it's a very polite little voice. It doesn't ever uh, go over your own thinking. It doesn't ever
mhm.
speak loudly. It waits for your quiet time to give you gentle messages. And so you might have to try to change some habits. And I'm working on that.
You know, of all the people in the world that I care about, I care the most about you. And I love you more than anyone else I think I've ever loved.
Oh,
And yet, when you say to me, I'm busy, I leave you alone.
you stay away.
Yeah. And so if spirit loves you more than anyone else and loves you to the core of your soul, and you say, I'm busy, spirit being a loving, kind, having that kind nature will say, okay, I'll leave you alone. You're good. Apparently, you don't have time for me, and I'm okay with that. I'll be with you.
That's right.
And so I think what you need to pay attention to, are we not only allowing room for spirit to speak to us, but are we allowing room for even those that care about us to speak to us? Sometimes I think we shut people out and shut everything out to get the to-do list done, and we don't realize we're to done.
He used to say, "Are you mad at me?"
Yeah,
I
really,
said,
because, well,
"No, I'm just in my work mode."
that's one of the reasons that I suggested that when you open up the spirit that you smile. Because generally when you're in your work mode, you don't smile. You know, I'm
No,
busy
I
working,
don't.
okay, you frown a little bit and you just know you're working hard. And there's an expression that you have on your face that tells people that you're working and tells you that this is serious business. And spirit's never going to interfere with serious business until you have time for it.
Yeah, that's right. And so yes, I've been a little driven, and
A little.
I've been very driven in my life, and I'm trying to slow down.
Well,
My age is helping me slow down.
she's on her way this week to her first driving anonymous meeting, driven anonymous meeting.
Driven anonymous.
But the problem is now we got to do this is really good. We got a Tesla and it tells her when she's going too fast.
Getting too close to another
Yes,
car.
slow down. You can do this. It's okay. And I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that about Judith, but I see this all the time for all of us. We're all trying to get the things done that we think are important when the most important things are the things we do when there's nothing important to do.
I drive like my father drove.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, that became normal for
Right.
me
And he was under pressure all the
all the
time.
time.
Yeah, right. Excuse me, I'm under pressure. I just turned up the heat. So turn down the heat on your own
Exactly.
pressure. Turn down the heat on the to-do list. And ask yourself, okay, I'm going to do a lot of stuff today, but I don't want to be too done. And
Or done in.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, I want to go to the indwelling spirit, not to dwelling in my misery or my pain and my suffering. This is really, really important. You know, our talks, if we are successful at all, is to help people get a little closer to their spiritual nature, to wake up to the goodness inside of themselves. And what I see every day in myself and other people is how difficult it is for those things to happen because of the worries that we consistently spend time holding on to, and the things that disturb us. And so if we can let any of that go, or just give ourselves a break, or make a schedule for yourself to have some freedom. I call it freedom of spirit, to allow the spirit to flow through you. And it will.
Indeed. Well, someone that we admire in the mental health field is Brene Brown,
Oh, yeah.
the PhD social.
If you
Uh,
haven't ever watched her TED Talk on YouTube, you really want to watch that. It is so good.
she probably has several. But
Yeah,
this,
she
but
does.
this quote that I have is on, if I can find it here. Did I turn the page? I did turn the page. It's on intuition,
Oh,
or
yeah.
this inner teaching. She says, what silences our intuitive voice is our need for certainty. We look for assurances from others, Learn to trust your intuition. Intuition is not a single way of knowing. It's our ability to hold space for uncertainty and our willingness to trust the many ways we've developed knowledge and insight, including instinct, experience, faith, and reason. That's from Brené's book called The Gifts of Imperfection. And I loved it. I thought
Mhm.
it really shares a lot of wisdom.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautifully said. And so important. I think, go ahead, you had another one?
No.
Well, I was thinking what she was saying about the need to be, and she's implying the need to be perfect, to get things done perfectly, that our desire to not get it wrong, to not be wrong, not to be enough, overwhelms the enoughness of our own spirit. And we are enough. And we're good examples of human beings, all of us, every one of us. There's no one that I've ever met that didn't experience and express in everything that I know about human beings, human beingness. So how is it we get off on the idea that we're not enough? Mostly by advertising, marketing, and the things that are told to us about not being enough. So take a big breath and say, I am enough. And when I close my eyes, for the moment that I close my eyes, everything goes dark. And the reason everything goes dark is because you've shut out the light so that you can open up the inner light. You can be awakened by the light that's within you that wants to shine. Some of us, I think, when we close our eyes and see the dark, we get scared and start thinking about things that we think we need to do, as opposed to saying, first I have to go to the black screen and then allow the light screen to come on, to allow the thoughts that have to do with light to come alive. And when we do that, it is a joy. It will make you smile.
Indeed, and we know our people that are here with us right now, and we know that they experience this all the time and value it. I would recommend that whenever you hear that still small voice, you write it down
Mm,
because it can be very dreamlike, and you may forget. I already was forgetting something I heard this morning, um, which I'm remembering now, so I'm going to tell you. I heard you are loved, guided, and protected. And so that was just very lovely to
that's
hear.
beautiful.
And
You
and
are
you and
loved.
you and you're needed on the planet at this time.
Yeah,
So what that says is that just being who we are, being loving, caring, spiritual people who care about the world and each other is very important. That is a huge thing. Just compare that to an angry, self-absorbed, um, me type of person. Just think of the energy that puts out. So just your being on the planet at this time, with your love, with your caring, with your nature is a
it's
great
huge.
gift to the planet.
As you were talking, I was thinking, it's strange to think about. I was thinking about a giant anthill and billions of ants. And then I also realized there are no extra ants.
That's hard to believe, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, and that's what we do is say, I'm an extra. No, you're an
Yeah.
essential. And whatever happens to any one ant happens to the entire colony. And it's known. And if one ant gets in trouble, the colony responds because the colony knows that every ant counts. Well, we should treat ourselves at least as well as the ants treat each other and get that you count and get that the person next to you
And
counts.
you told me that the Earth couldn't survive without ants.
Actually, no, well, yeah,
Humans
our
couldn't survive.
survival is dependent on ants because
Our
of what they
survival.
do to the soil. There's, I mean, over 100 different types of ants, and I do a lot of reading. Well, actually not, but it was a nature program. So I read the nature program. We have, captions. And so I read a lot. But they were talking about all the different types of ants and how essential they are in Africa. They're essential for the animals that actually dig. They're essential for the cheetahs to climb up on top to get a view of the animals that are out in the wilderness that they're hunting. They do a lot of things that we had no idea they do. If something so small can be essential to everyday life, imagine how essential we are to the everyday life. And we know that we are because we're shaping and changing the planet with just being here. And so we have an essential role in consciousness to help improve this world that we're living in.
Indeed. And so now I think that I want to share a screen and invite people's
Boy, that
participation.
went fast.
It did.
Well, we're gonna go, first you're gonna share a screen too.
Thank you. We want to invite people to, oops, sorry, wrong thing. Here we go.
Yeah. For those of you that, this old hat for most of you, but for those of you that are new, we are a not-for-profit 501(c)(3) organization that does have expenses. We love it when you support us because it makes it possible for us to continue to do this. It does take time. It is a labor, and they're actually quite a big cost. We're doing our taxes, and I realized this is not free. So for you to support us is supporting that which supports you. If it doesn't support you, please find something that does. We support PBS. We support our ministry and ministries like ours. I support the arts. Put your money where your consciousness spends its time, because it's an affirmation that you want to grow consciousness in all areas that serve you.
So we, at this time, and you can go to our website, which is cslpalmbeaches.org. Won't get it if you put .com. It's .org. And there's a button here that says ways to donate, and that shows you how. So we like to say this affirmation because it's true and necessary. Let's say, my investment today is made with a full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is.
And we're going to go back to cancel, stop share.
Thank you.
And now we can close the